Mhm.
We're good?
It's on.
Okay. Are we ready to start then?
Yes, I just started recording.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice to see everybody in their respective squares, rectangles again tonight. I hope everybody's doing well. I'll move right to you, Jamie, because I have no comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wanted to briefly talk about some of our successes and challenges of reopening. We are in week 3 with students and week 4, if you include the week that we started with just staff. And so time flies when you're having fun, right? Let's start with the challenges because I want to end on more of the positive stuff. Challenges, I think first and foremost, when we first started coming into the room here, a couple of you gave Dan Bowman and his team kind of a kudos and a high five. And to say technology has been a challenge would be an understatement. There's just such a high demand for technology right now across the globe. And we're not immune to it here in Canandaigua. And so probably well over 2,000 help desk tickets have come in. Dan's team is working tirelessly around the clock. I dare not even ask how late a couple of their members were up last night trying to fix some of the filtering issues we've been having. And we hope that some of those issues will start to resolve this week. But a major kudos to Dan and his team, some creative thinking, some just incredibly heavy lifts that they're attempting to do to make this work. And we're just so thankful for them. It has been a challenge. We recognize it. We've had a lot of conversations with community members, parents, students that have just, they've been frustrated because it isn't working from home remotely is where the primary issue is. And so what we believe to be happening is when somebody's working from home and they try to go onto a site, our filtering service is iBoss, and I know Dan can explain this way better than me. I'm not going to steal all of his thunder, I'm sure, for his presentation. But it has to communicate 2 ways multiple times, and it's just not very efficient. And so, coming up with and setting up a different means where it's much quicker and more efficient, we believe will solve that problem. And I know he'll talk a little bit more about that during his time. The other challenge is we've heard from some families questions around rigor and academic expectations. And it's interesting because we're hearing 2 things. This is too difficult. This is too easy. And so, it's fair to say they're probably both right in many ways, but this is new. And we're trying to find kind of that middle ground where it's challenging, but manageable. And we've used the analogy that some people like to say we're all in the same boat here. And I've reminded people before, that's not really true. We're in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. And we have to be mindful of that as we design our instruction and our expectations. And I've had a lot of conversations with community members and our staff around that. And none of us, admittedly, have the perfect answer yet, but we're working towards it, and we will find it. But that's been a bit of a challenge. And I think the third challenge I just want to mention, there's been others. Let me not pretend there's only 3 challenges. There's a lot of them. Is information overload. Information overload is, I think, become a challenge for parents, for students, for staff members. We are communicating so much, so regularly, it's hard to keep up. And even if you can read what we're communicating, you're not committing it to memory and permanent knowledge. And so we often find ourselves answering questions from a phone call or an email about something we've already addressed in a communication. And sometimes that can be frustrating, but we have to constantly remind ourselves it's information overload. People aren't inadvertently just, missing this information. It's just there's a lot coming in and it's a lot to understand. And so how can we be more thoughtful about our communications? How can we be even more planned with our communications? So sometimes, some of the people on the screen will say to me, Jamie, can we send a Brave Square message about X, Y, or Z? And I'll say yes on Friday when I send my other communication, because I don't want to just overload? Or can we send a communication about A, B, or C? Yes, in Matt Schrage's communication on Thursday, because that fits there. And so really just trying to be thoughtful about those conversations and make it a little bit more palatable and manageable for families. So those are just 3 of the challenges. But moving on to successes, I think first and foremost, our staff and students' safety compliance. Overwhelmingly hear from people on an ongoing basis, wow, everyone's being really great about this. They're wearing their masks, they're wearing them appropriately, they're self-regulating their 6 feet of distance, even at the kindergarten level with students. When they run up to a teacher and they say, oh, and they self-regulate themselves and give the space when they can give the space. And so you see it all the time. People are just really rising to the occasion. And every time I walk the halls, I hear that same sentiment still to this day in week 3 or 4, however you want to look at it. And then another success, but it's also a worry. I want to say our staff is probably working harder than they ever have. Certainly harder than I've ever seen any staff work. I mean, they are just from morning to night. But what I fear about that is this heavy weight that they're carrying, this heavy burden that they're carrying from themselves. And I can't even tell you how many times I had to tell some teachers today because they're worried and they're carrying this burden that please let go of perfect. That I know teachers are perfectionists and they want it to be what they know it to be, but right now it just can't be that. And so it's not going to be perfect. They're going to stumble, and that's okay. But my belief is they're doing a great job. They are working so hard trying to make the very best of this challenging situation. And I guess the last thing I would say about our successes, it actually came to me when I was walking. I walked all of our buildings today and interacted with so many staff. But we had one of our lunch monitors, as I was walking towards her at the primary school, pull me aside and say, I wrote it down because I didn't want to get it wrong. We're doing good, aren't we? And I thought, and I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, everybody's just following all the rules. We're doing really great. And I said, you really are. And she had a big smile on her face and was just so proud of our school system because we're doing good, aren't we? And it made me think, yeah, I am proud of what everybody is doing, and they ought to be proud of what they're doing too to make this the best possible year we can. But when I think about it, there's so much that's out of our control. I believe that we are doing outstanding at the things that we can control. We really are. That doesn't mean we're immune to an infection or a spike or something happening that causes us to have to tap the brakes or perhaps even close for a bit of time. But I couldn't be more proud of our team, and I'm talking about our staff, our students, and the community for doing everything they can do to control what we can control to continue to progress and move forward. And so I know we have a lot of directors on here tonight, and I could talk about each one of their departments and the successes and the challenges, but I don't want to steal their thunder, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. I just want to end by saying I am so proud of our One Braves family.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. I think we all echo that. We appreciate everything everyone is doing. And I think it's really a testament to multiple things being able to happen at the same time. It is possible for people to be doing their absolute best and working really hard to resolve issues and anticipate them, and also possible for people to be frustrated with the circumstances. And so I think the more patient we are with ourselves and each other, the better off we'll all be. So I think we're all really looking forward to hearing from all of the directors tonight. Just a couple of quick business items before we do that. We have minutes up for approval. I'll ask for motions, please. Michelle and Beth, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously, Deb. And warrants, please. I'll move on behalf of Megan. Michelle, you were also on them? Okay. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously too, Deb. Thank you. Matt, are you introducing the speakers tonight? Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Last time we were together, we heard from our building principals and Katie McFarland about the opening of school. That was our first opportunity to have students physically in buildings, but to be able to get to that point Many of the team members that are joining us here this evening did a tremendous amount of work to try to get us to that point in conjunction with our principals. We heard about some opening statistics and how the first day of school actually went. Well, tonight our presentation is focused on a variety of things from our different lenses that went into trying to support the reopening process. So I'm going to try to kick things off to talk about our timeline a little bit, some of the events that happened over the summer, give a little bit of perspective about some of the activities from the Office of Instruction, and then each one of our directors will subsequently then share out some of the activities that they engaged in as part of the reopening process. So directors, I'm going to share my screen, and then or maybe I'm not going to share my screen. Someone else is going to share it for me.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Quite all right. So I'll share my screen, and then as we need to progress through the slides, we will work through that. Thank you, Mr. Farr, for the assist. Just 1 second here while I do that. All right. All right, here we go. So here it is. So obviously you can see the list of folks joining us here this evening. I'm currently in the welcome and review of timeline phase, but you'll see all the different folks that are joining us here obviously on the screen and some of the different pieces that they're going to share out on. So as we know, although this timeline is really starting in the summer of July 2020, a lot of this work was really already underway when we're thinking about March. We were really very much in the throes of trying to figure out how do we wrap up the current school year. We're trying to project and think about what the reopening of school might look like if we were in that position come September. As we know, we received more detailed guidance in mid-July, which then accelerated our planning and progress for the opening of school. That's for the administrative advanced dates in July and August were really focused, as we talked about previously. But we also knew that based on how the previous school year ended, we really need to do a lot of curriculum recovery efforts and professional learning so that our teachers felt as prepared as possible for the opening of school. We've learned a whole bunch since then and continue to try to work on some of those elements to provide professional learning and consistent and common planning time for our staff. And a lot of that time was dedicated to trying to organize the events that occurred that first week of school, where we made the adjustment to have several superintendent's conference days to support the planning and the reopening process, to move from the planning phase to more implementation. So one of the examples from the Office of Instruction, it was pretty clear that at the end of the closure period, we had asked teachers to fill out a return to learn reflection form. I won't go through necessarily pulling up each one of the different individual forms, but you can get a sense of by using these different links, and I know we've shared the presentation out with all of our Board of Ed members. The form itself asks teachers to really reflect what went well during the closure period, what are some of the potential gap areas they're anticipating, and what might be the impact for a return to learn scenario when we come back in September. Based on that feedback, we recognize our teachers need time. They needed time with one another. They needed time as a team. They needed time with their teacher leaders. So we engaged in a process in which we called it the curriculum recovery process. Essentially, we had our teachers work in smaller teams with a day over the summer, and they engage what's called a SWOT analysis. So you're thinking of strengths, you're thinking of weaknesses, you're thinking of opportunities, and you're thinking of potential threats. Threats meaning like what are some challenges that might be a threat or a concern to facilitate learning as we returned in the fall. So it was out of that overall general reflection and that analysis that led them into getting into department and grade level teams so that they could prioritize skills, standards, and then trying to translate that to instruction and eventually assessment. The beauty of the process is that our teams did an incredible amount of work in just a single day. It was amazing to see the level of detail and specificity that each one of the teams took as part of this process, and how that really helped to translate to when we had those 4 conference days to start the school year, how much that was an important element in their planning. And they continue to look at and revise their curriculum and instruction based on the analysis that occurred at that time. We're thankful that our current model, and tomorrow is another example of that, where that planning time and that common time that our teams will have with one another has really allowed the teams to band together to help shoulder the load of what it's going to take for curriculum instruction and assessment to adapt to our changing needs, but also adapt to whether it's a virtual model or more of the hybrid and in-person instructional model. It's time that's well spent, and we know that our teachers are very much taking advantage of it. So from the Office of Instruction lens, this is just one example of what went into that, but so much more went into it from our different departments, and our directors are here. So I'm going to turn things over to Stephanie Knapp, who's going to talk about from the Office of Special Programs some of the things that occurred over the summer from her lens. So Stephanie, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. So as many of you know, we start our annual review process in December and go all the way through till June, working with families to develop an IEP for the next school year. So as you can imagine, we had a few under our belt before the closure occurred in March. So what ends up happening at annual review is that we decide if a student is eligible for extended school year, or ESY. And these are students who have documented regression over extended breaks. So our special education teachers and related service providers are gathering data towards annual goals and documenting the amount of time that it takes for a student to recoup the skills that they had prior to the break. So at the end of the school year, we had 62 of our students who were eligible according to the data that was collected. And we had 48 students who participated in a virtual experience of extended school year. And we held extended school year over all 5 days. So it was a 30-day program, 5 days a week for 6 weeks, and 48 of our students participated in that. We were actually quite pleased with the number of families that chose to participate. It was a 77% participation rate. And what we ended up doing is the team called each family individually and asked if they'd still be interested in participating in extended school year. So I think that many of those conversations were based on the relationships that we have with families and their understanding of what we could deliver. So again, I'm quite pleased with the 77% participation rate. We had five of our students who participated in related services only, and those were delivered over teletherapy or virtually as well. And we employed 7 special education teachers. So this year, extended school year was quite different. We didn't have the number of paraprofessionals that are traditionally associated with extended school year. We also didn't employ a school nurse nor a school social worker because of the needs being so different. But again, we had great participation. Families were very engaged in that. And I think that it really gave us an understanding of what reopening could look like in a hybrid space. So again, communication with families was critical to success. We had lots of communication both between the extended school year teacher and the families, but also from the administrative lens. Families felt very comfortable reaching out to us about the things that they were seeing as barriers in their homes. Because again, this was the first time that we had a live virtual experience as a school district, because that was not the expectation in the spring. So again, I think that we had a great understanding of what things we needed to improve upon when we did open in the fall. And so I think that the team was really well poised to give information back to Matt and central office management team about how virtual learning could look. So thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you for meeting with me multiple times as the guidance changed from the CDC, and we got together as a team to decide what moves we were going to make next with extended school year.
Okay, now you have the next slide. We also had our K-5 summer school, and it was, as Stephanie describes, it was also remote and synchronous, which was something we hadn't done in the past. We had 82 students, and we had over 80 YMCA students. That was something that was new this year. We had 15 teachers working synchronously with our students, and 1 teacher plus 1 intern working at the YMCA. Dan Bowman was able to provide Chromebooks to the Y, which was helpful. And we serviced the students 3 days a week, and Mondays and Fridays, the students at the Y used the Chromebook. We did 5 30-minute remote learning sessions that went between 8:30 and noon. And the students received intensive direct synchronous instruction in reading and or math with their teachers. We had 2 professional development days because, again, as Stephanie describes, a lot of what we were doing it's new. It was new for the teachers. So they learned new technology and new ways to present instruction so that we could help the students meet their potential. So there were 2 professional development days built in throughout the summer. And then there were little lunch time, also mini sessions for teachers. There was a lot of new learning, Edpuzzle, Jamboard, Flipgrid, Zoom, breakout rooms, boom cards. So it did give teachers the ability to test out a variety of different teaching techniques and see the students' response. This summer, a really nice connection was made. Well, Leslie Tomanovich was able to connect also with the intern, and we were able to get a scholarship for one of our ENL students so that student could participate in the Y program and also receive direct instruction throughout the summer to help improve language and reading and writing skills. So that was amazing. And Keith Pedzik was wonderful throughout the summer in helping us with all of the technology and some of the new learning. And Cassandra Mussolino was the liaison who was the intern for the YMCA. I would also agree that I think that our parent and caregiver involvement was really a great thing. We had a lot of contact with families. Parents were very positive. We had the ability to finish a session and then maybe even have a small conversation with a parent, with a caregiver, with a guardian to give ideas and supports for what might also support the student at home. That was a real plus to the program this year. And all of the learning that occurred throughout the summer definitely informed our intervention planning for this year, both virtually and hybrid. We have 3.5 virtual interventionists this year. And then the rest of the interventionists are working in a hybrid format. And this year, different from the past, we're not crossing cohorts of students. We're taking groups of students from the classroom and servicing them without mixing so that we have less likelihood of spreading anything. But I think we've learned a lot from the summer. We had the teachers were very positive about what they learned. And at the same time, they were very honest in saying how much work it was and how challenging it was to utilize the different tools. So we had a positive and challenging experience this summer, but we're really pleased with the results. There's links on this slide to, if you click on any of the images, it will open into the professional development, a letter, and then again here you can click and look at the links.
All right, technology. So normally this time of year, I'm telling you what we did over the summer, which is most of the same things we did over the summer, along with a bunch of new things towards the end of the summer. We did our normal about 200 new workstations and swapped those out in the classrooms, 1,300 new Chromebooks, got those ready for the students in different grade bands, re-imaged pretty much every single workstation throughout the summer. And along with that, on sort of a new thing this year, we always have some interesting project going on, and that's, installing Promethean boards in the middle school. So every single middle school classroom got a Promethean board finished up over the summer. for the start of the school year. So those are all the things that we normally would talk about. And yes, that all happened, but then we have lots of new things that happened given our circumstances. So the ticket increase at this point in time also, I'm telling you, when we start off the school, we're trying to keep up and trying to make ends meet, with the staff that we have. And there's usually an overwhelming number of requests coming into our help desk. But this year was, by far the most challenging year I've been here. And not to, over exaggerate or anything, but the numbers show about a 30% increase. Again, that's hundreds of tickets, a 30% increase for the first few weeks of the school year. That comes from the sort of this new task of now supporting families at home. We're supporting staff that are home. This is not something we typically have done. My tech staff was not at first very comfortable doing it because it's not something that we are accustomed to, is working through completely remote, helping a family or a staff member with their internet access at their house. Now we're supporting everybody's network, not just our own here at the school. We introduced, a new tech help email address with a phone number that families could call in, which, was challenging because, when families call in, you could only imagine that you get, well, my Chromebook's broke. Sometimes they don't even tell you who they are or who their students are. And there's a lot of research to be done, even to find out who the problem's for and what the problem is before you can even start to troubleshoot it. So this 30% increase in support tickets, some of those support tickets take a long time to actually get through. Along with that, just the increased use of technology across the board. Every, staff and students are all relying on technology. We all know that. And all of the different hardware and software that we have put into place over the last few years, where, we got a really good response out of that, but now it's almost like a necessity. And so there's so much more use of our software programs and hardware and all the integration that happens between those, that was difficult for both the tech integrators and tech support to be able to support those teachers that now are sort of using this on a daily basis where they might have dabbled in it before. We had several issues because of this increased use of technology. There was the IBOS problem that Jamie had talked about earlier. That hopefully I'll have really good news in the next day or so that we've been able to eliminate or reduce at least that issue where students and staff members using their Chromebooks at home were seeing quite a bit of a lag. And that was just due to capacity of our servers at school being able to support the numerous requests by the tens of thousands of requests a second of asking the filtering service, is this allowed or is this not allowed? Every one of those little tiny requests have to be gone through the database and found out whether or not that's acceptable. That was just overwhelming the network cards on those servers, and we've been able to work with our local BOCES and find a solution that hopefully will resolve that. During the middle of all this, we had a minor virus problem that sort of took a few of our technicians out for a day or two of troubleshooting other things. We introduced a bunch of different new software, and our normal integrations of software that we normally do all rely on Infinite Campus and our rosters. We for Parent Square, Seesaw, Schoology, all of those, Google, everything relies on, the current Infinite Campus scheduling. And since scheduling was so late, a lot of our integrations took a little longer than we normally would. And we didn't have time to troubleshoot those until school pretty much started. And so that have been working on problems with those vendors or with those different services for a couple of weeks now. We've got most of those all solved, but one of the major issues there was not only are we overwhelmed, but every vendor that we're working with is overwhelmed. So a problem that on a typical year we would have had with a synchronization issue or something with Schoology, something that would have taken us a day to figure out, they just don't respond to us because they're overwhelmed. So something that would be a day normally is taking a week. So that's with every vendor across the board. It really has not been any exceptions. So that's really been part of the issues of trying to support some of this stuff, is just not getting the vendor support either. And on top of that, we did have to implement quite a few new things. We implemented the school dismissal manager, which is the software for the primary elementary school to help ease the burden of the dismissal process. So there's an application that parents use, and they pick who is going to pick up their kids, and the car line on each one of the sides of the building is, parents put in a PIN number at the top of the hill or at the beginning of the lollipop, and then it automatically sends off to the classrooms that those students, their parents are here to pick up, and then they come down. So you can see that there's a lot of moving parts to that piece of software, and trying to implement that in literally 3 days, I think we did it in, that was very difficult. And just every single day we used it, it got better and better. We went from an hour dismissal. Within 3 days, we had it down to a half an hour. So overall, it was awesome. Implemented the COVID questionnaire into Brave Square. That was another thing that was touch and go every single day up till the kids started, staff and students started coming to school. We were trying to work with a developer to get that running. We implemented Envision and Optigate, which is our financial software, over the summer. That took a lot of time. And we implemented Seesaw, which is another, huge improvement for the primary school age kids, where Schoology really wasn't age appropriate. We found out over the last few years for that classroom management piece that Schoology is so good at, and Seesaw is definitely that fits the bill for those primary kids. So again, implemented that in a very short time frame, about a week right before school started. So that was another huge undertaking. The Chromebook and iPad distribution, like I said before, we put out about 1,300 Chromebooks per year, and we did the same this year. And one of the hard parts of that was just that a lot of kids are not coming into school. We've had all the virtual kids, and so we had to set up a distribution schedule, and we opened up a window, a bay at the district office, where we sat for we had staff sitting there for 2 weeks with open hours, so people could come in at their leisure, socially distance, and be able to swap out their devices. And hopefully, at that same time, we were encouraging everyone to try to get their broken devices at home, repaired before school started. So that was a very big success. But out of the, several hundreds of Chromebooks that we distributed, we still had about 100 left at the end. And then since then, we've been trying to work with the hybrid kids and get those swapped, and get those remaining virtual kids swapped. Because the faster we did that, the faster we could take those retired Chromebooks that are still usable, and put those into carts in the primary elementary school to hopefully alleviate the need of some of those primary age kids bringing back and forth their devices for the hybrid day or for their hybrid versus home days. You know, at young ages, that's a very difficult task. So those are a few things that we've been sort of working on. There's a lot more, but I appreciate everybody's support. And I mean, I've gotten lots of praise, but it's really my team that does this. It's not me. I have an awesome team and they do an amazing job, and they're under a lot of stress, but they keep moving every day, and we keep getting a little bit further along, and we'll get back to running in a smooth fashion very soon.
Hello, everybody. Haven't been with you in a while. It's nice to be here and see everybody. I want to start out with some thank yous, really starting with Jamie, who's been a big supporter of what we're trying to get started. And it's been challenging with athletics because the guidance has changed and every sport that we've typically offered is not available. We've worked really hard with Brian and Vern to make sure that we create a safe environment where we can engage student athletes in the things that they love to do besides their schoolwork. As I said, it's been months of planning that's gone into it. Mike McLean has played a huge role in helping prepare what we call COVID kits so that each team has all the necessary supplies to keep the surfaces clean and make sure the equipment is clean. Kids have been fantastic in terms of their compliance. We're very excited about how things have kicked off. We're able to offer boys and girls soccer, excuse me, girls swimming and diving, boys and girls cross country, and girls tennis. And not everything is available, but lots of folks are doing things in preparation for their seasons. Fall 2 will be on March 1st. Excuse me. As I said, we got started on Monday. So athletes and coaches are very excited to get back together and be involved in the things that they really love and enjoy. Enthusiasm has been really, really good. We have 215 JV and varsity athletes registered presently. And so the turnout has been good. It's been very positive. As I've gone around to different practices, we see kids smiling, laughing, even though they're wearing masks and coaches are wearing masks. It's brought the building to life after school, which has been really nice. Our coaches, I just want to comment a little bit, they've undergone some training, safety training and preparation. Each team, like I said, has the COVID kits and they understand what our game day plan is. We've communicated with families in terms of what our expectations are for the year and some of the changes and challenges. One of the issues that will be difficult, and I'm sure some of you may hear about, is the fact that we're only allowed to have 2 spectators at an event per athlete. We've come up with a plan that we think will be as best as you could possibly hope for. We're putting together lanyards, and each athlete will be given 2 lanyards so that they can issue them to whoever they wish to. And when we started that process, it was surprisingly inexpensive, and it made sense because we're able to identify folks that have been through the gate, and we'll see them in the audience. We'll know that folks are cleared. And most of the league that we're in Monroe County have picked up on that and done the same thing. So hopefully we'll be able to run our contest in a safe and fun way. We know people will be disappointed, but we have to follow the guidelines. We have to keep things going. And as I said to in our parent piece that we put out on Brave Square, we're all in this together. And we know people are going to be disappointed about the spectator issue, but we're going to do our best to make sure the kids have a safe and successful season. As I said earlier, our coaches are undergoing a very comprehensive process every day when kids come. They are temperature checked. They are screened again because it's over 10 hours from when they actually start in the morning and do their first screening. So our coaches are doing a lot of extra little things, like I said, with the temperature checks and the questions and making sure kids are wearing masks. Moving forward, Section 5 competitions is one of the things that folks look forward to. Those are coming in slowly as people are trying to work with venues. That's one of the challenges for a sport like cross country where they go to parks. We have to work with departments of health and come up with processes, and people are worried about how are we going to monitor that? How are we going to just allow 2 spectators per athlete? So there's a lot of challenges. And so that is moving a little bit slowly. We are working on dates and venues for some of those competitions that we can't do at schools. And that's one of the things we turn to our coordinators for. And I'm working with the tennis folks specifically because that's my area. Our youngest athletes at the modified level will start October 5th. We have 117 students registered as of today. I'm sure that number will grow. They usually wait till the last minute, a lot of them. There will be a reduced number of contests. I wanted to let folks know, but the main thing is that we do have a season for these sports. For soccer, for example, goes from 16 to 12 varsity contests, and tennis at the modified level will have 5. But the bottom line is we'll have something, and that's what we wanted to make sure we did. And I've said it earlier, but Jamie was one of the key folks in terms of advocating for a safe return to athletics. And we've done our best to follow this 52-page document and the guidance that's changed a little bit along the way, but we've pivoted, as everybody says, and we've done our best, and we're going to stay diligent so that we can maintain our program and keep it going for the fall and hopefully into the winter. So thank you.
Mr. Tenney, you are muted. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I said a lot of really important things, so you missed it. So thanks for having us here, giving us the opportunity to give you an overview of how the year kicked off. Some of you might have heard that there is a pandemic going on. So part of, my role has been the COVID liaison. With that, a lot of people have already talked about some of the items that we have done as a district. I just want to bring up a couple of those items. We are incredibly grateful for our collaborative efforts with the Department of Health. I am in contact with them 5, 6, 7 times a day. We're also in constant contact with our medical director, Jamie Klein. That partnership is, I really do feel critical with the constant changes that we do see coming out from the state, as well as the interpretations from the Department of Health regarding return to learn protocols, the algorithms for students as well as staff. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up a lot of the work that was occurring during the summer. Under the leadership of Brian Nolan and Mike McLean, we really did create a good stockpile of PPE, cleaning supplies, and other items, especially for our nursing staff, that are truly necessary to keep both our students and staff safe during this, this pandemic. I also have to give incredible shout out to Dan Bowman, Tracy Lindsay, and Caroline Chapman for the work they did with Brave Square, as well as the behind the scenes work that Tracy and Caroline have done with being able to allow us to take the data from Brave Square with the daily health questionnaire and then compare it to daily attendance for students and staff, and then to be able to troubleshoot those that have not completed it, or those that are absent, or those that do mark yes. Ironically, we do have, errors that occur during the day, errors when they are completing it, and we have to troubleshoot because it is a red flag. And I also have to give incredible kudos to our nursing staff. The amount of work that they are doing on a daily basis from before they come in, while they're here, working with our students and staff of children that are symptomatic, children that have gone home with symptoms, siblings that have symptoms, the amount of contact that they are, the communication that they're, going through with families to get up-to-date information, to be able to provide them with the guidance of next steps, and giving them the proper guidance of how to get back to learn is extraordinary. The work that they're putting in is very impressive. Besides, COVID, we still have our typical health and safety items. We have our behavior intervention team, which is a makeup of county-wide professionals in the mental health field, as well as probation, police, our mental health staff inside our buildings, and administrators. The goal of this team is to really keep an eye on any type of concerning developments and keep an eye on them over a longer term. And when we have concerning situations arise, we provide resources and try to restore a child or a family or someone to good standing and get that into a positive outcome. Our district building and health and safety team will meet for the first time this Thursday. One of the things we'll be discussing is our emergency preparedness. We do have our safety week coming up, and we will be reviewing the various proposals each building has put together. The reason why I mention this now is because of the pandemic, we are altering some of our drills. The guidance that we did receive really is asking schools to be thoughtful about how they do conduct drills, from your fire drills to your full evacuation drills to secondary sites. The considerations need to be made to conduct the drills with fidelity, but also maintaining proper safety during COVID now. So we will be discussing that at our health and safety meeting for the first time, this Thursday. That about summarizes what we've done for health and safety.
So with that, again, I want to thank our directors that presented this evening. Our group has had to really respond to changes very much on the fly and trying to be ahead of the game, but obviously it's caused us to be quite nimble as those changes come in to make sure that we are staying on top of those adjustments and trying to communicate things out to those that need it as quickly as possible. So I do want to thank all of our presenters here this evening, and if there are any questions from our Board of Education members, we'd be happy to hear them from you.
Questions or comments from anybody? Milt.
So, Jim, you indicated that each participant can have two spectators. Is there an ongoing activity to try to develop a web streaming or some other opportunity to broadcast from any of the sites?
Great question. Yes, we'll be broadcasting from Braves Field. I have Mark McNeil, who's done it previously. He's going to run a camera. We have those capabilities in place right now. We've done that previously. We're also working on getting something set up in our pool at the academy so that we can do some broadcasting there. We'd have to put some drops in to make that happen. I don't know if Dan is still with us. Dan, you want to comment on any of this?
Yeah, the drops were actually installed today.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, a quick turnaround on that. And we will probably be working in the next week or so, getting the equipment up there and testing to make sure that we can get a good view of the pool and everything. So we're going to do it from the mezzanine above it.
And Milt, Jamie has volunteered to run along the cross country route during the meets with his phone, and he'll be live streaming. So.
No, I said a GoPro. I said one of those GoPros that go on my head.
So yeah, anywhere we can do it, we're trying to, Milt.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much, everybody, not just for the presentation, but for everything that's behind it. We really appreciate you.
I think John, did you raise your hand? Sorry, I think I saw him raise his hand.
John?
Just a real quick question, Dan, or whoever knows it. The outdoor classrooms that we put in, can we get Wi-Fi out there? Is there currently Wi-Fi to those outdoor classrooms?
It depends on where the classroom is. I mean, if it's close enough to the building where there's an open window, most likely you're going to get some bleed from the building to be able to have Wi-Fi, but there's nothing dedicated for those classrooms. And if it's farther away from the building, or if it's a solid block wall, you know, where that is located, then probably not. That was one of the discussion items to look into the possibility of providing some Wi-Fi out to those classrooms. But one of the issues is trying to get hardware right now. We've been trying to get a replacement outside rated access point for Braves Field for several months now, and they're on back order forever. So the likelihood of being able to do anything other than get maybe an additional access point pointed out the window towards that classroom and sort of hope for the best is probably the most we're going to be able to do at this point, given the situation with inventory for vendors and stuff.
I think Brian Nolan and Dan and Mike McLean and the building principals they're working hard more on a long range plan to have more permanent outdoor classroom sites, 2 per building, where the principals are selecting sites. They'll put a stone pad down, and maybe we'd have almost like a dry erase board that's mounted out there more permanently. And so that's more of a long range plan looking towards the spring and over the summer. And at that point, maybe we'd be able to take a look at the mobile hotspots, you know, with the supply being a little better. I know, Brian, you've been working pretty hard with the principals on that.
Any other questions or comments?
I would just like to say kudos to Jim for using the word pivot and Matt Schrage for saying nimble. We try to work those into every meeting and they did it. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Let's see. We have a consensus agenda and supplemental up for a vote. I'll ask for motions, please. Jen and Cheryl, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Deb? Are directors free to go, Matt? I didn't say anything. But yeah, you guys are free to go. Sorry, I was a little behind on that. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for being with us. And then let's see, we have committee reports. Beth, will you report out on policy, please?
I will. So we have 3 policies up for a first read. I know you guys are not used to this, like, you know, we're back in the swing of things, folks. One is public expression at board meetings. That actually, Deb, please correct me if I'm making this stuff up. I think that started because we needed to add the virtual piece to it so that people knew that they needed to contact Deb to find out how to do that. And when we did that, we realized that we had never actually carried over that whole thing. Everybody in the committee thought that it actually was part of another policy and it wasn't. So that's why you're seeing that one. The public access to district information is added because we need that section about sending electronic information. So that if you ask for it on paper, it's 25 cents a copy. But if you ask for it electronically and it takes more than, it's like a half an hour or something, then we can actually charge for the person's time to put that in a format to be able to send. And the third one in true governmental form is we had a policy about staff and student relations that included both. And NISBA has now said that we need one for staff and one for students. So it's basically a page and 3/4 of don't have sex with your students. It's just what it is. So those are the 3. And if you have any questions or you find anything you want to change, we'll have a second reading the next time. So let me know.
Jamie, are you going to say anything to Beth about being glad about what she mentioned? Just as a point of reference, that refers back to many years ago when our school attorney did a presentation and used those exact words, just in case you thought that was out of context. Let's see. Thank you, Beth. So those will come back for a second reading at our next meeting. Okay. Let's see. Jen, will you report out on the safety committee, COVID-19 safety committee, please?
Yes, I will. I would like to start by saying that Vern was pretty modest about the ongoing level of effort that this takes. And to say that the guidance changes dramatically over the course of time is to put it in much smaller terms than is actually real. Brian and Mike have been incredible. I ask a question and I get an answer incredibly quickly. Some of the things that really have been refined in the last few weeks since our last board meeting are fans being put in the right place in classrooms for the appropriate classrooms. There are some places where you don't need and actually don't want additional filtration, and that's been refined. We've got everything up to the standard of the right amount of outside air versus the most filtration that we can put in there by MERV filter across the buildings. We have, and I say we loosely because I just got to watch, got PPE out across the buildings. I know there's a few things that we're still looking for and trying to get right that Mike and Brian especially been beating their heads trying to find. Supply chain is not only an issue for Dan's technology, but also for the stuff that we need for the buildings and the people on the COVID side. This past week, we had quite a conversation about the complexity of reporting that has to be done for that health screening and for following up of students and staff that need to be in buildings, and the number of hours that it takes per day, to get done. And finally, we have CO2 monitoring available in the buildings. And this is going to be an interesting project to look at going forward, because as humidity drops, heating turns on, and we try to keep heat in buildings. When you keep heat in buildings, you keep air in buildings. And so it'll be a delicate balance of how much outside air versus how much heated air. And there are ways to just use carbon dioxide monitors to get a kind of a temperature check, if you will, on how that's going to work. And Mike and I have had a couple of conversations about how to do that so we can be intelligent about fine-tuning systems for the winter that we're all concerned about. But most of all, big kudos to that team for doing a lot of detailed work to get it put together.
Awesome, thanks. And thanks for your work on it too, Jen. Let's see, Beth, for county, please.
Oh, am I open? Am I good? Yes. All right. So sorry. I just want to give a shout out so that all the board members know that our wonderful Matt Fitch gave up 4 hours, maybe even a little more with transportation time, of his beautiful Saturday to present about our financial information to the mandatory training for 4 County. He did a wonderful job. He was very succinct. He had great slides. He was engaging. It was just absolutely wonderful. And to do it on a day when it was pushing 80 degrees outside is, you know, that's a big gift.
Great.
So even though he's not here, thank him very much.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Beth. Let's see, Jamie, do you have anything? Oh, I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that, you know, Jen is really being modest in her role on that committee too. And, you know, I think I may have mentioned it before, but, you know, we're incredibly lucky to have her as a resource. And, you know, she's not afraid to, you know, really dig into things and find information for us. I think she probably walks away with more homework than we do. And, you know, she also does it, you know, very quickly as well. So thank you.
Great. Nice job, everybody, all the way around. Jamie, any parting words for us?
Yeah, so thank you, Jen, for mentioning the number of hours that go into our daily review of the health screening survey, the return to work, the return to learn guidance, communications with our nurses, our Department of Health, literally probably full-time job for multiple people right now. And so really appreciate their efforts and their diligence and their attention to detail. You know, I'm talking, well, I don't want to list people because I don't want to leave anybody out. There's just so many that are putting forth effort on that. And the last kind of parting word I'd like to say is specific to, you know, I know as well as probably our building principals and some other folks on this call right now, receive emails or phone calls from upset, or let's just call them angry parents, quote unquote, angry parents. And I just want to encourage people to take the time to pick up a phone and make a phone call and have a conversation with the parents. I will say, at least in my experience, 9.5 times out of 10, we have great conversations. It's just a matter of frustration for our situation at school, their personal situation, their personal life, everything that's going on in society. And it kind of just reaches this boiling point. And I had one interaction with a father last night where he just sent a really angry email, and we went back and forth 2 or 3 times. And then by the end, he was apologizing and thanking us for all of our hard work, and, you know, just admitted that life is heavy right now. And I said, call or email anytime. And his response was, is there a number I can call you? Wanting connection, wanting to interact. And so let it not be a reflection of an individual and take it personal, of just the fact that this is hard. This is really hard right now. And we have to continue to hammer home that we're all in this together. That's all.
Thanks, Jamie. Anything else for the greater good from anybody? And I'll ask for motions to adjourn, please. Michelle and Milt, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good rest of your night. Bye-bye.